I would like to welcome everyone back to our podcast, Unloaded. This is Michael Seahorn.
Shannon Morrow.
How's it been, Shannon?
Good, man. I've been doing a lot of thinking a little bit. I say a lot and then a little about our previous few podcasts and kind of the theme and as things develop. And we'll get into it more. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to share about some of the deeper, just like analysis, even thoughts around what this is all about, unloaded, the weight we carry, and been considering that more in light of the direction things are going here. So I'm excited to share a little of that today.
Good. That sounds good, man. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. Not too crazy, but just as usual, man. There's always stuff going on, right?
Always, man. Of course, that's what you want.
Comes in waves, and other days it comes in ripples. I guess it just depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
So what's on your mind about the last couple of episodes? I'm intrigued.
Yeah, you might remember, or I guess we could even go back and listen. We were both really commiserating with each other. We share the very distinct characteristic that, man, we are hard workers. We really care. And, that's often kind of that theme, like, man, we work so hard, we care so much, we really want to be helpful to other, and how sometimes that can be too much. It can get us in trouble, and it's just like, what is that? That tendency to want to work so hard or make us care so much for other people or care so much about others, trying to take care of all our people. And, it's an interesting characteristic, and there's some stuff under there that may be worth exploring.
I agree. I went back, obviously, like I usually do, and listen to our episodes, and a lot of times it has some duality in there, right? Mm-hmm. Because on one hand, I'm listening to the audio, I'm listening to the background noise, I'm trying to make sure it's crisp and clear for the listeners, right? But then on the other hand, sometimes I find myself too focused on the technical side, so I'll have to rewind and restart, and then put the IT side away, and then just listen to our conversation. And I think that this week in particular, I definitely was a little bit more attuned, if you will, to other people's energy being put into my space, if that makes any sense to you.
A little bit. I mean, what do you mean?
So, for example, a lot of times when people have a tendency to be comfortable around other human beings, we've talked about this in our past, is you have to be cautious because sometimes people will just start doing the dump, right? And what I was really paying attention to this week is talking less, listening more. And it didn't matter if it was a staff employee or a family member or a friend. But interestingly enough, when you really start actively listening to people, I feel like you are in a better position just to listen. And sometimes, more often than not, I didn't have to say much. Mm-mm. I think it was just more of they just needed an ear.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you have to be cautious because some of that energy, if it's emotionally charged energy, regardless of what was causing that emotional charge in that other person, is you have to be cautious because that energy, in my opinion, can be transferable. Now, what I mean by that is if I'm closer to that individual, let's say I have a little bit more personal relationship with that individual. It's not just hey, I'm a boss and you're an employee, or, I'm just somebody and you're somebody we just met. But when you have a personal relationship with that individual, it's happened with you and I sometimes in session, that transference of energy, because I'm charged and you can see and feel that, oh man, he's getting worked up about that, right? So it was interesting this week is when I was having discussions with different people, I was really trying to focus on that. to not engage in the same crazy energy that was coming with whatever they were going through.
Right. You bring up a great concept, a fascinating, just how, okay, everything being energy in one form or another, and of course it is transferred, and how much it is transferred, or the intensity in which it is transferred, depends, of course, very case by case. And you'd bring up a good point. If we're closer in, sometimes it's more readily felt. It can be deeper, more intense. But there is some matter of choice in that. We, on one hand, on one side of the continuum, we could allow ourselves to just almost even absorb it, to just become fully immersed, just drop all the way in and almost be reliving the other person's experience, be catching all those emotions, get pulled into that same emotional state. It can be this very close, intense transference, which, I don't know, often might not be the healthiest. It depends, and, you continue to move the other direction down the continuum. And, kind of in the middle ground, it is possible to very actively listen, be gaining a lot of understanding, have plenty of empathy, while at the same time remaining grounded in oneself. Not get totally absorbed or sucked into it, but just try to find that balance between providing that really quality attention for the other while also staying rooted in our experience, and kind of keeping a little bit of that buffer in between, so we aren't too affected by it, so then we don't take it home with us or whatever. But that's an interesting balance, and it's so different with each person in each situation, but it is nice to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to what you and I were talking about last episode, was about carrying maybe other people's weight when we shouldn't be carrying other people's weight. Because we did talk about that.
Yeah, and when you say shouldn't, I don't think it's like as intentional, but of course it happens, especially with those who we're closer to, anybody, a close friend, a family member, a partner, a kid, whoever, if they are going something suddenly pretty distressing happens to them and they're, really in it, if they're really upset and sharing that with us in a, pretty close, intense manner, then how this person who we're really close with and who we really care about, how could we not be drawn into that and carry some of that? That's just a very natural thing, almost unavoidable to have that affect us.
Yeah, it's not easy. We talked about it in length, over the last 2 episodes with some of the things that I was going through. And, when you have that personal relationship, it really does make it tough. It makes it tough to sometimes see the clarity in it, and I search for that sometimes. And, even in the case where we talked over the last 2 episodes where, I was resolved in my decision the night before, but then woke up the next morning, and after doing some reading and meditation, I changed that, right? It changed my mind. And I think there's a lot of power in there, because I think when you really look at it and you're putting very intentional focus on it, I think when you're doing that in this energy world, or when you're trying to come to a resolution one way or the other, when you're so narrowly focused on what it is you're feeling, thinking, and you're able for a short amount of time to be in a place without the emotional charge, I think that's personally where I start getting a little bit more clarity.
Yeah.
And that's not easy, by the way, so I'm going to throw that out there.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. For me, like I was saying in the last episode, through my morning reading, through my morning journaling, and then through my morning meditation, I came to a different decision. Now, if I wouldn't have done those three things the following day, I probably would have still been in the same decision I made the night before. But in that clarity and in that power of just really focusing in on the situation, I came to a different resolution.
Yeah. And that's your end goal often, is resolution. You really want to figure it out, solve it, fix it, like have completion. Like, oh, okay, there's this issue. How are we going to best resolve it? And you really put a lot of determination and focus toward trying to figure out the best way to resolve a lot of these things.
Yeah, and that comes through, a lot, it comes through a lot of trials, man.
Yeah.
It comes through a lot of trials. It comes through a lot of trauma, and it comes through a lot of just dedicated work in the space of self-help, which we've talked endlessly about in the Unloaded podcast world. But for me personally, I feel that in some way it makes me just a little bit better of a human being, because I'm able to, like we've talked about, I don't want to carry that into the day. I don't want to carry that raw, emotionally charged state where it could ultimately then flow into my staff or flow into my family or flow into some guy on the road because he's late and he cut me off in traffic, right? So I find that when I can come to those resolutions in those most difficult decisions, man, it is like unloading your backpack, man. It is like somebody literally just steps up behind you, takes a heaping load of weight off your back, and it just goes away. And you just feel lighter. That way, when I'm now moving on through the morning, I'm not so weighted down.
Yeah, because until that resolution, it can feel very heavy for you to, the quote unquote problem or whatever it is that you're trying to resolve, is still on your back. And you have the ability, it's a developed ability. This is it's quite the skill, actually. It's kind of hard to do often, but to see in yourself when you are emotional, when it is affecting you emotionally, and I'm feeling and be able to identify those feelings, recognize the emotion. And then what you do, the skill is to still, okay, there it is, acknowledge it, and then allow for it while also kind of backing out of it a bit, because through observation, through identification, it does create a little space. And then that space is what helps you then still deal with it in a more rational, logical manner, rather than letting, quote unquote, the emotions get the best of us.
Yeah, it's taken a long time, obviously. And, I want to remind the people who are listening, there was a time when I felt nothing but anger.
Well, nothing but anger, but yeah, okay.
The large majority of what I felt was anger.
You were a pretty angry dude.
I was a pretty angry guy. So as I've been in the self-help world now for over a decade, sometimes these emotions that I feel are still pretty new to me, and I went into great length, talking with psychologists and psychiatrists, and then ultimately ending up with Shannon about not feeling emotion, not feeling things like I thought I was supposed to feel. And some of that was derived obviously from my youth, but some of it was also derived from some of the things I'd experienced in the military, which I'm not going to go into. So for me now, when I do feel these raw emotions, they're raw, man, just like anybody. Mm-hmm. But what I don't want is I just don't want that feeling to be something that just overrides my ability to go through the day. because that's all I'm thinking about, right? So in that space that Shannon was talking about, where I find, I pull out a little bit, pull my focus back a little bit, and be like, man, I'm fucking pretty charged up right now. Sometimes I get in my truck and I just, hey, I got to go get an iced tea, or I'm going to go out to my shop, or I'm going to go jump on the exercise bike, or whatever the case may be. It could be a million different things, right? But by doing that, those things help create the space in order for that emotional charge to get to, let's say, a level that I feel comfortable with, then sitting down and going, okay, why am I charged, man? So that's kind of how I go through the process. Yeah. As Shannon said, it's been a hell of a practice that I've been building up over many, many, many years. And there's no perfect system out there. I mean, our listeners have heard me many times in our podcast where, I've been pretty charged up about some things, which have carried on, for multiple days. Sometimes the other person or people continually bring that back up. So even though you or me or whoever, we may have had some resolution, the next thing you know, you're right back in it because this individual, these people are just bringing it back up again. And now you're just like, okay, man, like, I don't want to live Groundhog Day over on this, right? I came to a resolution, I felt good, and here we are back at it again.
So then back to that conversation about, which way is that energy moving? Often we can get pulled back into other people's energy,
100%.
If they're still really charged, if they haven't really been able to process it or create a little space, and they're, and it just takes a little bit of that to pull us right back, and then suddenly we're heated and we're right back where we were, and then but we learn, and that's part of the practice. And maybe next time or the next time or sometime in the future, after doing our own work, working through our stuff, and then returning to that situation and the other person's energy still simmering, but wait, I'm actually able to stay fairly grounded in where I'm at currently, kind of what I've worked through and how I'm feeling. And I can actually choose and stay solid in not going back there, getting worked up again. I want to stay here, more close toward resolution. And believe it or not, then the energy can start moving the other direction. We can influence others' energy toward, they see that we are mostly resolved, staying calm, not getting triggered, not getting heightened. And it's, those mirror neurons, man, if we can stay centered in ourselves, sometimes we can influence others in a little bit more of that positive direction of like, hey, let's rationally move through this and have some completion.
Yeah, I mean, you said something pretty profound there, and I think there's a lot of power in being able to stay in that calm state when somebody else has got some emotional charge, and that is very difficult to do. Okay, so I'm not going to make light of that, but I think you are correct. If you can find a place where you're comfortable with whatever it is you're going through, whatever you're dealing with this individual, and you can, even if it's just a hair less than, doesn't have to be something great, but even if you're just a hair less emotionally charged than the individual, a lot of times what you'll find is that situation starts to simmer down on its own because you're not feeling the old fire, right? I'm not trying to throw gas on the fire. I'm trying to maybe put a little bit of water in there. Right?
Moving the other direction. What direction is it moving? Is it moving up or down? Is it being heightened or lowered? And as long as it's generally in the direction we want things to go, and if we're conscious of that and putting forth some effort into that, that's exactly right.
It helps, and I practice it a lot. I'm not perfect at it by any stretch of the imagination, but what I have found is if I can just bite my tongue, keep breathing, keep listening. Sometimes that is literally enough to diffuse the other person because they're not getting in a reaction from me.
That's it.
Right? They're not pushing the button. I'm not sitting here arguing with them. I'm just silent. I'm listening. I'm looking at them and I'm breathing. That's it. More times than not, that individual has to calm down because they're not getting that engagement.
Yeah.
And people, it's funny. It's not funny, but if you ever watch this in real time, it's quite an amazing thing to watch because it's literally like you banging your head into the wall. You're not getting a response, man.
Yeah.
So they stop.
Yeah.
And generally they, hey, you good? Oh, I'm good. I'm good, man. Are you okay? And generally for that point, you can steer that conversation or discussion or whatever you want to call it in a different direction. And generally what you'll find out is you'll get a lot farther. I mean, I've been in some pretty heated confrontations.
Yeah.
And it's been very difficult to stay in a calm state. Right? And Shannon, you and I have talked about plenty of these in real time sometimes. And each time, depends on the person you're dealing with. Like I've dealt with individuals where they're literally on the roller coaster, man. They're calm and then, whoa, man, they're skyrocketing up and then they come back down and they go back up and they come back down. Yeah. And you're sitting there going, good Lord. You need to breathe, man.
And then there's other times when we're the roller coaster.
100%.
We can relate. We know how that feels when it's that really hard day and we're super thin and something hits and we're raw and we just raw. And we have all gotten fairly reactive. And but that's kind of, if we are just a little bit aware and can see it, acknowledge it, kind of steer it, bring it back down a little, even, just naming it, apologizing, that's emotional intelligence. That's being able to sorry, I just got fucking crazy there. That triggered the hell out of me. I didn't mean to bark back at you like I did. No, that's on me. Let's try again here. So, what were you saying now?
And, sometimes you might find that other individual doesn't want to talk to you, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
You're right. They'll just say, hey, maybe they walk away, or maybe they just tell you, hey, we're done. Well, okay, well, now you're definitely going to have to go figure out where you stand. And
or you could chase after them. No, we're not done. No, we're not.
You definitely can do that.
I'm not. Some people have experienced being on the receiving end of that.
You can. I've had those moments where I have personally just shut it down and walked away, and the individual kept following behind. And at that point, it's very important to understand that that's getting to a point where it could be very volatile very quickly. Yeah. So you do have to be smart in your process on how you deal with those individuals. But Shannon is correct. There are times where people will run after you and be like, "No, we're not done talking." And at that point, you do whatever you need to do as a human being. I generally still try to stay as calm as I can, and then hopefully that situation diffuses enough to where they will just wander off back to where they came from. So, but it's definitely not easy, man. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it'd be a completely different conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But in today's world where I am, I do try to the best of my ability, I really do try to just be a good communicator, be a great listener. Try not to let the emotion overrun you to where you say something you may regret or you might have to apologize. Because I've done that too, where I've had to come back the next day or even next week and say, hey man, I apologize to everybody. I didn't handle that properly. I was feeling a little emotionally charged, said some things I shouldn't have said, especially at my level or my leadership role. And those aren't fun times. But I think you get a lot of credit for being able to own where that you overstepped.
That's it. Yeah. A lot of people really struggle with that. It can be really hard to do, to oops, my bad. Sorry about that, right? Because that very emotionally charged state can kind of shut down our ability to just remain a little more rational, and it perpetuates that hot emotion.
It's tough, and like I said, I'm not going to sit here and act like I got it all figured out. I don't. I work really hard at where I'm at. I work really hard at trying to be just a little bit better tomorrow than I was today. And I think through those lessons and through the trials and the tribulations and all the great things that we get to go through in life, I get to a point where it's like, bro, I'm not trying to prove nothing no more. I really not. I don't feel the need that I have to prove myself to people anymore. I perform my role, whatever that role is, to the very best of my ability. But I just find it more comfortable to be me. That's what I really try to focus on. I just try to focus on me being me. I get when you're at a job, or you're a husband or a father or a friend or whatever the role is that you're doing, you're still you. And what I have found is, man, it is so much easier when you get this version of Mike, and it doesn't matter what the role is. It's the same Mike over and over and over and over again. So that's what I mean by, I'm just not trying to prove anything to anybody anymore, man. I'm just me. That makes any sense at all out there.
Yeah. And while it is you are very different with your employees than you are with your spouse or your boss or your kids, right? It's all the same Mike trying to be as authentic as possible. It's given whichever role, it's still going to be a different Mike who's also the same Mike.
And I agree with you. Obviously, I wouldn't talk to my employees like I do my wife, but I think what I mean by you get the same me is if you were to see me out at dinner, or you were to come to a barbecue, or we were just hanging out, let's say we bumped into each other at the store or something, there's not going to be a drastic change. You're not going to see that change. Now, are my responses different in the role that I'm doing? Well, absolutely. I'm in charge of a corporation, right? And a lot of people. So, but even then, I still try to stay grounded in myself. Like I said, I'm not trying to, be a different version of myself, because I think that's very difficult.
Not trying to prove anything, not trying to put out false pretenses, or, hey, look how great I am, or, hey, am I acceptable enough, or am I good enough, or am I, just a lot of the things a lot of us struggle with in our younger years that most of us eventually outgrow. But yeah, I do understand what you're describing. Over time, with just age and maturity and the development and, advancing through different stages of life, we are able generally to settle in, discover, become more comfortable with who we are, and move from that base more, rather than, the kind of younger years of really more being fueled by need for acceptance or approval, or trying to earn it or be good enough.
Yeah. No, it's part of being human, man. Right?
It's part of it, man.
It's part of being human.
Yeah. I mean, dualities, as you say, once again, we often hear, man, I just don't care what anybody thinks anymore. It's so freeing to, I don't care what anybody thinks. I get it. I understand that statement, while also like, how true is that? Because I don't know that anybody, I don't know, maybe there's some far out crazy hermits out there that really don't care. But we are very social beings. We rely on connection with each other. And if our behaviors or whatever really can like jeopardize our connection with other human beings, I mean, we do care. We actually do care. Maybe not what other people think. I mean, it's all language is insufficient for a lot of these bigger concepts, but both. We want to stay true to ourselves, and at the same time, it is important to us, our relationship with others, and if we're an asshole or if we are just really difficult to tolerate, we kind of do care. On certain levels.
Yeah. Well, we're going to look into this next episode.
We're there.
I'm going to leave it on a little bit of a hanger this week.
Good.
I think it's a good place for us to hit the pause button because we've run out of time anyway. But like always, if you find yourself out there and you need someone to talk to, 988's out there for you. You can call or text that free. Please reach out to them or somebody. Local area, do a quick Google search, find you some providers that are in your local area, go book an hour and see what happens. It's never not worth it to just sit down for an hour and have a conversation with somebody, even if you are paying for it. So there's that piece. But like always, I hope our listeners have a good week. As for me, this is Mike Seahorn.
Shannon Morrow.
And we will catch you on our next episode.